Hi, good morning, everyone. I am Sharita Granum, Project Officer in the Prime Minister's Office, and today it is my distinct pleasure to welcome and thank you all for joining us for this morning's press briefing. Today, you will hear some exciting updates on the Reclaiming Our Atlantic Destiny project, otherwise known as the Road Project, and the plans for the Newton Enslaved Burial Ground Memorial. So today we will be addressed by Prime Minister the Honorable Mia Moore-Motley, Dr. Kevin Farmer, Deputy Director of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society, Sir David Ajay, world-renowned Ghanaian British architect of Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture fame, Dr. Maxwell Anderson, American art historian, author, and president of the Souls Grown Deep Foundation, representing the Isayo LMI Consortium, and Ms. Ingrid Thompson, Chief Archivist at the Barbados Archives Department. Now, I also wish to acknowledge Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, Division of Culture, the Honorable John King, Ambassador David Comishong, Lady Ashley Ajay, and the representatives of Ajay Associates, Pascal Sablan, Marissa Glauberman, Louisa Alves, Joe Manchina, representatives of the Isayo LMI Consortium, LMI Chairman, President, and CEO, Mr. Lawrence Schindel, CEO of Isayo, Mr. Raymond St. Martin, and Isayo Advisor, Intellectual Property and Entertainment Attorney, Mr. Odu McCory. Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office, Division of Culture, Mr. J. Hugh Wiltshire, CEO of the National Cultural Foundation, Ms. Carol Roberts-Reefer, Special Advisor to the Prime Minister, Mr. Jonathan Reed, Director of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society, Ms. Alexandra Cummings, Chairman of our Road Advisory Committee, Mr. Douglas Luke, other members of the Road Advisory Committee, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. That was a mouthful. And now, all protocols having been established, I think we can get on the road, all pun intended. So at this time, I wish to invite Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Moore-Motley, to open the remarks and lay the context for us this morning. Prime Minister?
Thank you very much, Sharita. Distinguished guests all, my task is an easy task this morning. I'm here to lend both my voice and my office to what I believe to be one of the most significant projects that this country will ever undertake since independence. This week, we have completed the process as we all continue to be brimming with pride. But that will only mean something if we can literally follow through with credible and tangible projects across a range of social and economic endeavors. One of the first ones that this government has chosen to support is the road project, Reclaiming Our Atlantic Destiny, which allows us to be able to bring to fruition work that has been undertaken over the last 40 or so years in this nation. The Barbados Museum and Historical Society is here, and they can tell us about the significant archaeological and other scholarly work that has been associated with the Newton Burial Ground, which has been the repository, the home, the place, the cradle, the burial site of 570 slaves who just represent a oomph of what happened in this nation. One of the interesting things is that this project has allowed us to develop international relationships that will position Barbados rightfully as that place from which the world can appreciate and understand what transpired for centuries in what is still, in my view, the worst crime against humanity by far, because of the length of time that it endured and the extent to which we are still fighting the intangible consequences of it. At the same time, we are conscious that separate from the significant work that has been done on that burial site, that we are also the owner of the second largest volume of transatlantic slave records in the world. Or I could put it another way, outside of the United Kingdom, Barbados has the largest transatlantic slave records. And to that extent, we believe that we have first a moral duty to protect them, two, a duty to share with them, share our people share with our people those records, and to ensure that our people, Barbadians, understand all aspects of what happened to us when we came to this land, where we went, how we did it, every aspect of our life that can be gleaned from those records. And then, of course, thirdly, that we haven't been the victims in many instances of what transpired in those records. We must now be able to reap a bounty from those records by creating a heritage economy and a heritage district. This morning, therefore, is the culmination of much work that has been done over the course of much of the last year. And I want to thank all of the persons in the Ministry of Culture. I want to thank, in particular, Sharita Granum, who is anchoring this, Jonathan Reed, who has been driving it from my office, and the Barbados Museum and Historical Society, Kevin Farmer, Alessandra Cummins, and of course, as I said, in my office, John King, who has been anchoring and chairing the meetings for me when I can't be there, and Permanent Secretary Jehu Wilshire, and the advisory committee chaired by Doug Luke that has been put together to be able to assist in this. I also want to thank the National Cultural Foundation. Their work will continue. I believe that they are this morning, Mrs. Roberts-Reefer and others. There are 3 other aspects of the project that we've started to develop, and they're not as far as advanced as this aspect, but they are moving ahead nevertheless with speed. One, we are talking to Codrington College about the establishment of a spiritual university there that will reflect not just the Abrahamic faiths, but all of the religions of the world, because we believe that Barbados can be that place that helps to show the world how different religions can coexist in a small space. And we're hoping that we will have international linkages, but you will hear more about that as we go forward, in the same way that you're hearing about today after 9 months, 10 months of work. Similarly, we want to speak to the University of the West Indies, and I've said this publicly already. We feel that there should be a school of public policy focusing on small island developing states, our opportunities, our challenges, our development policy framework. And finally, as Senator Reverend Rogers reminded us so eloquently in the Independence Service last Sunday, we need to tell our stories. And telling our stories requires that we develop a film industry, an indigenous film industry, as well as leveraging Barbados as that site for persons who want to be able to do filming here, and marrying the two in a hope to be able to increase the quality of skills, the quality of equipment, and the things that are necessary to make a successful film industry. We have many, many, many stories to tell, so that we are in the process. We've received a proposal looking at how we can redo some of our older installations into that kind of soundstage, and we are in the process of starting those discussions at a very early stage. But this, one of the 4 projects, is ready to go. And because it is ready to go, I'd like to hand over now to the others so that they can share with you. And I'll speak at the end, because I think when I speak at the end, I'll be speaking to a room that is far more sensitized and far more moved as to why this is not, let me put it a different way, as to why this is both a moral imperative and an economic necessity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. We will now hear from Dr. Kevin Farmer, Deputy Director of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society. I'm sorry, I was reminded that it is Mr. and not Doctor, but you know, he could trick you. He could.
Before Kevin speaks, I've deliberately not introduced you to the consortium because I want the magic to unfold. So there's no disrespect, Sir David.
Good morning. Thank you, Sharita. Thank you, Prime Minister. All protocols having been established. My task is a simple one, to remind us of what is the significance of the enslaved burial ground at Newton. That enslaved burial ground, created in 1660 and until the 1834 Emancipation Declaration was a cemetery for the enslaved who worked on that plantation. The enslaved were displaced at emancipation, and their sites, both villages and burial grounds on this island, underwent a system of erasure. What remained was recovered in the 1970s through the oral testimony of a descendant of those buried there, while speaking to the researchers Jerome Handler and Frederick Lang. That led to the site being excavated, and what was found was, at that time, seminal, and it still remains so. Newton burial ground, as excavated, is the only extant communal enslaved burial ground used by a singular plantation in this hemisphere. The rarity of the site's authenticity and integrity is unparalleled. Its significance resides in how it memorializes us, our ancestors in and outside of our island, wherever they are in the diaspora. It allows us a space to pay homage to our ancestors, to acknowledge their sacrifice as part of an invidious system of forced migration that changed the world, and their enduring legacy for future generations is of critical importance to the continued construction of national identity in this age of republic. The journey here has been assisted by many, many people over the last 40 years. The list is long, but I promise you I will keep mine short. To Mr. Ward and the Ward family for donating the burial ground to the museum in the 1990s. To Sir Trevor Carmichael as president for securing this legacy and ensuring the BMHS would be careful stewards of the property for not only our people, but for the world. Mr. Lombe Montley as a former council member who recognized the importance and value of the site and helped secure the gift for future generations. The museum's original committee, chaired by Sir Woodville Marshall, who started the process of planning and researching for the development of, at that time, a slavery museum, and the current Enslaved Newton Burial Ground Committee, chaired by Dr. Tara Innes, for continuing the planning and development process for Newton, its associated Museum of Enslavement, and for keeping the faith by working to ensure inclusiveness, education, and community accessibility, which remain at the heart of this project. Finally, to Ms. Alexandra Cummings as director, who is both the bridge to both committees, but also for securing earlier funding through UNESCO for the research and initial conceptualization for the museum, and ensuring that the site was in fact listed on UNESCO's slave route signage process. We thank them for their tireless work and look forward to this bright future as we embark on the road to envisioning a new heritage economy with the collaboration of the PMO Division of Culture, the Archives Department, Ajay and Associates, the Consortium, ISAIO and LMI, and the vision of the Prime Minister in centering our aspirational story from what is a global site of memory, of significance, and of conscience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. We are going to keep this going and now go to Sir David Ajay, who will now give his presentation.
Thank you. All protocols observed in this room.
If I may, and perhaps Sharida, I probably should just give Sir David his due. Sir David Ajay is a world-renowned architect. You will best know him, this part of the world, for his magnificent work in the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., which was designed by himself and his firm, and for the considerable other work that he's doing in the Middle East, in Africa, in Europe, in America. That Sir David is here in Barbados is meant to be, because his wife, Ashley, and if she may stand, is a Barbadian descendant of the Nichols and Story clan. Nothing about what we are doing here happens by accident. Thank you. We are absolutely honored that when we met less than 6 months ago, Sir David agreed to undertake this project. And it is with that I hand over to you, Sir David, with the greatest humility, that you have agreed to help us tell our story and to let the world know what transpired here. Thank you so much. Thank you, both you and Ashley.
Prime Minister, I'm deeply humbled by your words. We are deeply honored to have been welcomed, to been given the hospitality that you've given us in Barbados. We already feel very much that this is home. So I hope that we can say that. This project is really at the heart of why I was inspired to become an architect, that stories and structures and monuments that really define our worlds, which have been devoid of stories of people, of the diaspora, of Africa, need in the 21st century to emerge. We need to emerge. And memorials are a profound way of creating a moral compass for future generations to understand who they are. As human beings, we are ritual creatures. We think we're not, but we are ritual creatures, and we need sites to celebrate and commemorate our rituals as human beings. And there is a history throughout the beginnings of humankind, through the cradle of humanity in the Rift Valley, right across the great civilizations of West Africa and the great civilizations of East Africa and the Mediterranean, that speak to this deep need to acknowledge who you are and who you want to say you were to future generations and to the generations that are here. So this project for me really was about honoring the extraordinary moment that has happened, that this site was not plowed, didn't become agricultural because of a phenomena of geography and geology, that this site stayed as a burial ground. And it's a gift to us, and one that I'm so proud that Barbados has been a steward of, looking after this, and now will use this to honor the ancestors that were buried there. There are 570 ancestors that are buried there, and that is the starting point of the project. The project visualizes these ancestors as totems that are no longer invisible, but totems that will become visible. Totems that are connected to the cosmos, because we all come from this soup of a universe that we live in. There are discs of light. If you look at our histories, our ancestors always understood that we connect to the cosmos and we belong to the land. And this monument is about honoring that. The totems connect us to the cosmos and connect us to our desires and futures. And the circle is made from the land. And we searched for the land that connects to the motherland, and Barbados has it in a place that you call Scotland, this beautiful place, this extraordinary laterite red iron oxide earth, which is all over the sort of beginnings, the cradle of where our humankind has created civilizations and came from. So this earth, we hope, will be used to create a circle of commemoration and a place of ritual that will honor these ancestors, but also become, we believe and hope, a place that the connections to all the different parts of the world that Barbados has, and the archive and lays testimony to that, will also find this space as a space to remember and to ritualize and to create as a time capsule to the ambitions of this new republic and its future. So I could explain more, but I think that we have an amazing video that really tries to capture that. And so let's play that, and then we can move from there.
Masa baby won't kill me, oh. Masa baby won't kill me, oh. Masa baby won't kill me, oh. For he kill me, he ship me regular. Oh, I live with a bad man, oh Lord. Oh, I live with a bad man, oh Badabo. Oh, I live with a bad man, oh Lord. For I go to the riverside regular. Masa baby won't kill me, oh. Masa baby won't kill me, oh. Masa baby won't kill me, oh. For he kill me, he ship me regular.
David, I think you need to speak. I think that all of us, and certainly the first time I watched that, the extent to which it moved me, I hope that you had that experience now. This is just the memorial, but I think, David, you can contextualize the other things that you're looking to put there, or Max will do that as well.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to Max, who will actually talk about all the other things that will support the memorial.
Thank you, Sir David, for that inspired vision. I think we can all agree that that is absolutely world class. To give you your credit, as the Prime Minister said, we do know that your most well-known commission to date was the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. Your portfolio also includes the Edo Museum of West African Art in Benin City, Nigeria, the Africa Institute in Sharjah, UAE, the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Library in Johannesburg, South Africa, and the UK Holocaust Memorial and Learning Centre situated in London next to the Houses of Parliament. And Barbados can certainly take great pride in the fact that the memorial situated at the Newton Enslaved Burial Ground will join such esteemed company. So thank you again for that. We will now go to Dr. Maxwell Anderson of the Isayo LMI Consortium to give us some additional context, because as the Prime Minister alluded, this is one part of a much larger vision for this project.
Thank you, Charita, and Prime Minister, thank you also for encouraging this morning's extraordinary presentation by Sir David, which I think leaves all of us wondering what could possibly be more than that. And I also have to observe that he, because he's in such great demand internationally, will be taking his leave very shortly to a flight to his next assignment. So it's such a pleasure to be with you, David. Thank you so much for your work. As members of the Road Consortium, LMI Group International, through its chairman and CEO, Mr. Lawrence M. Schindel, and I are very excited to be working both with Ajay Associates and with our colleagues here in Barbados to assist in the digitization, the forensic analysis, and public presentation of the invaluable heritage of Barbados. The design of the memorial, which we've just seen, so moving, so much a call to the possibilities of architecture and design in calling forth the stories of the ancestors, is the first phase of what's envisaged to be a cultural heritage district, and one of many manifestations of the road project, as the Prime Minister said. This initiative includes a conceptual Barbados district to have a state-of-the-art facility housing a museum, also to be designed by Ajay Associates, and research institute dedicated to telling the story of the global impact of the transatlantic slave trade and forced migration. The facility would include public displays of original manuscripts, ledgers, photographs, and other materials, along with a large, climate-controlled, open storage section, major event spaces, and the amenities typical of comparable leading cultural institutions worldwide. Beyond its walls are imagined outdoor performance spaces that would highlight both historical and contemporary cultural offerings, from music to dance, digital projection, as the Prime Minister said, film, and other art forms. And together, all of these initiatives would lead to economic development, the creation of expansive job opportunities for Barbadians in sectors ranging from cultural tourism to hospitality to technological innovation. The new facility would also include a genealogical research institute, which brings ample potential for partnerships, bridging the University of the West Indies with peer institutions undertaking related research, particularly in the United States to start, at Harvard, the University of California, Emory, Rice University, and the aforementioned Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, designed by Ajay Architects. Our colleagues in the consortium are here also from the pioneering technological enterprise, ESIO, represented by its CEO, Raymond St. Martin. Raymond, would you stand? And with his colleague, Aidu Maikori, Esquire. Aidu. They're exploring the ample uses of their proprietary software in protecting Barbados's ownership pertaining to the heritage data and records, while amplifying this information by surfacing and connecting the stories of Barbados's people, culture, places, and significant objects. I'll close by saying that none of this, of course, would be possible without the rich documentary heritage so carefully stewarded by the Archives Department, which is at the center of the vast opportunities to be explored and unearthed and build out of Barbados's archival and heritage economy. And so through the digitization of its collections, strategic research, partnerships, the integration of pioneering technologies, Barbados can position itself as a global leader in technical expertise in the conservation, preservation, academic research, and organization of archival artifacts surrounding the unique socio-historical experience and positioning which we've just seen given life to through the memorial. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. We will now welcome remarks from Ms. Ingrid Thompson, Chief Archivist of the Barbados Archives Department.
Thank you, Sharita. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Barbados Archives Department is home to an enormous and impressive collection of historical documents and records which provide information about many, if not the vast majority, of the places, people, and institutions of Barbados. The department has within its holdings millions of pages of these documents, dating as far back as 1635. At the archives, we possess the second largest collection of records within this hemisphere on the British transatlantic slavery period. Through these records, we are able to give a clear and accurate historical account of those who came before us, providing a connection for our current and future generations to Barbados' history and the lessons of the past. These records and stories to be told from them form the basis of the several projects which you have been hearing of today. These stories bear so much relevance not only to Barbadians at home and throughout the diaspora, but to so many millions throughout the global community with whom we have so many connections and shared experiences as a result of the many migrations, both forced or voluntary, throughout the world and throughout history. These archives preserve the memory of our country and the journey of our ancestors from their several destinations to and from Barbados. We will digitize these invaluable national assets in an effort to ensure we are able to properly protect nearly 400 years of Barbados' documented history. We know that any loss would have significant local ramifications, and given the critical relevance of Barbados' experience to world history, the effects would also be felt globally. Digitization positions the Archives Department to better serve the needs and demands of its increasingly diverse and digitally oriented clients. Additionally, it sets the foundation for us to introduce a suite of new revenue-generating opportunities for Barbadians to benefit from. As we engage with these records and unearth the many stories in their current format and future state, it is believed that on the heels of republicanism, a new national consciousness will emerge among our people, which can only be done to the benefit of all. Before I finish, it would be remiss of me not to thank Minister John King, who from the time he took up the role as the Minister of Culture in 2018 have been relentless in his effort, along with my permanent secretary, Mr. J. Hugh Wilshire, in trying to find avenues to use these archival documents for the benefit of Barbadians in our country. Minister, I thank you. P.S. Wilshire, I thank you. I also want to thank staff at the Division of Culture and archive staff for their support over the years. This is the first time in my 35.5 years working in the archives that we have been having so much attention paid to us. And I want to thank everyone. I'm sure there are persons that do not even know there's an archives department in Barbados, but I want to thank everyone this morning. And as our Prime Minister always says, we know it's a lot of work. It's a very exciting journey, but as our Prime Minister always says, we got this. Thank you.
Well said, Ingrid. And thank you for the hard work. 35.5 years. Wow. I think that deserves another round of applause.
Thank you.
So, Prime Minister, I would like to come back to you now for your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. This week, Barbados set out on a new part of the journey. And I say new part of the journey because you will always hear me talk about the fact that we do this in relays, we do this in passing the baton. And each of us has a responsibility to carry that baton further than when we received it. I believe that this project will allow us to do so as a nation. It is being done first and foremost because the most important gift we can give our people and our children at this point in time is that sense of confidence and that sense of understanding of who we are. And that is why in almost everything that we have done, we've said that it starts with the acceptance of self, with loving who you see in the mirror, as Mr. Barr would say, and with appreciating that if we are going to talk about prosperity as a nation, prosperity comes from productivity and ingenuity. and innovation, and those come from an acceptance of self. I like to liken it to, and for those who are not cricketers, I apologize, but I like to liken it to timing the ball perfectly. You know when you have hit the ball perfectly or not. And you do that out of a sense of not only technical capacity, but also mental connection. It is no different in building a nation. And therefore, what we are seeking to do here, first and foremost, is rooted in shaping our people to be the best that they can be, to love who they see, and to honor both the past, the present, but also honor the future that they want to build. This country has a complex and difficult history. And that's why I said on Independence Day that we need to come to grips with having difficult conversations. This is the country that has the ignominy of being that place that created the Slave Code of 1661, which came to be the standard by which all others managed, exploited, and terrorized human beings as slaves. This is the country, and the work is still ongoing, that the historians are saying led also to a genocide by the plundering of others prior to the British settlement of those who lived here. That they lived here is not in doubt, because even us in the 20th century have found the artifacts of their existence. But that they were not present when the British came was largely because the British were not the first who came. We have a responsibility as a nation to help the world understand how it can recover from that greatest crime against humanity. And we have that responsibility because it was here that the modern institution of racism was perfected in the Americas. It is not something of which we are proud, but it is part of our history. And the lessons we learn as human beings is that even those things that don't make us proud cannot be erased, for they are collectively taken to become the sum total of our DNA and the sum total of who we are. No more so can South Africa erase the chapters of apartheid from the 20th century. It is because of that, and because of what we have inherited as a result of that, because in colonizing this nation, the British wanted to live here as well. And we therefore benefited from institutions being developed, even if the institutions were not available to all at the point of their development. But it is because of all of that that we have a solemn responsibility to ensure that we tell the story such that it never happens again. And let us not say that things don't happen again, because today looks a lot like 100 years ago, regrettably. We equally are the place where the first synagogue in the Americas is located here in this country. The oldest theological seminary in the Caribbean, and certainly one of the oldest in the Americas, is also located here. And we have to start looking around at what we have and seeing it differently, and allowing it to heal us, allowing it to empower us, allowing it to be able to earn for us in ways that it has not done before. And this morning, therefore, represents the culmination of that commitment. And Ingrid, I'm so glad that you contextualized it well, because for too long, the archives was just that place that some people went, a handful of people went, and as to whether and what happened to it, many didn't care. And I thank you for preserving over the years those records and all who would have worked with you. I know your predecessor, Christine Matthews, who also, when I served as a previous Minister of Culture, was adamant about its importance and its maintenance. And John, I thank you and the PS also for carrying the early parts and making sure that these things have to be recognized. The bottom line is that this will be a labor of love, but it won't only be financed by the government of Barbados. We wish we could do all on our own. We cannot, but we have the commitment to start and to do enough of it that we believe that other persons of like mind who recognize that this is a global asset and not just a Barbadian asset will also come to the fore. And that's one of the reasons why we've put together the consortium that we have to work alongside Ajay Associates in order to ensure that this project can be completed over the course of the next 3 years or so. We would love to have it completed by 2024, but at the very latest we are trying for 2025. And we have enough to start, and we believe that breaking it out into phases will allow us to be able to achieve that which might otherwise be seen incapable of being achieved, especially as we fight all of the other battles that we are fighting today as a nation. So with those words, I'd like to thank all of the persons. I'm conscious that Sir David is leaving us now. We thank all of you for being with us. This has been a special week, but we thank you more than anything else, everyone here. Everyone who is in this room is here for a reason, and you've in some way or another been part of the journey and will continue to be part of the journey. I believe that there will be a global press release this afternoon, given the importance of what this project is in Barbados, is about Barbados, but it is for the world. And once we understand that, then we begin to understand why we are attaching this level of importance to it. I thank all who have been here, and Sharita, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for summing that up so nicely. Very inspiring. We have a moral obligation to the generations that follow. At this time, we will now open the floor to questions from members of the media. And may I ask that you please identify yourselves and the media house you're representing before posing your questions. Thank you. Yes. So David, yes, we're acknowledging you. Thank you. Any questions from any of the members of the media present? I know it was a very thorough presentation by Sir David, Dr. Anderson, Mr. Farmer, and Ms. Thompson. Should we assume that everything was very clear and self-explanatory then? It's always a good sign. Wow, this.
It's probably because they know that I have to leave here as well and go and speak in the debate on the vending bill, which settles the new deal for vendors in this country.
Oh, they're waiting
and
for the next
if ever there was a good day for this to be had, it is the day that we are launching this project too, because there's a symbiotic relationship between that debate and the project which we've just launched. So the gods are watching us and taking care of us.
We don't look gift horses in the mouth at all. So thank you. That brings this morning's briefing to a close. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful day ahead.